People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed or you've heard. I mean, you probably would be, if you looked at my Facebook page, you see that, see, Friday I turned 70 years old. So it's kind of a milestone, you know. I guess the next big one is 75, so I thought I'd say something about growing a little older. I want to use the scripture from Psalm that says, teach us to number our days and recognize how few they are and how to spend them. Do you realize that the only time in our lives when we like to get old is when we're young? If you're less than 10, you're all excited about getting older. You know, when you're 4, you say, I'm 4.5. Now, nobody says I'm 36.5 or 4.5 going on 5. When you get to be 10, you know, you say, well, I'm 10 going on 11. You're 15, you're 16. You know, I'm always going on 17. You could be 13 and be going on 16. And then you become the big 21. And even the word sounds like a ceremony of some kind. Then you turn 30, and you think, what the heck happened? 30? How the freak did I get 30 years old? It's no fun. I'm just tired. What's wrong? Something has changed in my life. And before you know it, you reach 50, and then your dreams are gone, and you know you're 60, and you made it to 60. You didn't think you'd make it to 60, and you build up so much speed. Now you're 70, and then and that's after just living day to day, just living a day. Then you hit Wednesday. You start living day to day, and then you're just thankful to get to lunch. You get thankful to get to bedtime, but it doesn't end there. When you get to 90s, you start thinking backwards. It's strange that it happens. And when you're 100, you say, well, I'm 100.5. Well, I was a teenager in Kansas City, and we had this roller coaster. It was called the Big Dipper. And that thing it was old and rickety. It would never pass the OSHA standards. And it would slowly go up this thing, tick, 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 tick. And then it would just drop down. It would be like the bottom dropping out of your stomach. And your stomach would go up in your throat, and the bugs would go in your mouth. And you just held on for dear life. And then there was this huge screech when it stopped, and you know, it had sparks flying and everything else at the end. Well, that's kind of like life, isn't it? I mean, life takes a twists and turns, and you feel like your wheels are coming off the track. But then one day, before you know it, you come into the last turn and into the station, and then the ride's over. So, you know, I would think we better get a hold of every exhilarating moment we have. Someone said to me one time, you know, the train of life is going on before you got on it, and the train of life is going to go on after you get off. But no one can take your place. So, what would you do? What would I do if I had a month to live? You know, Karen and I sometimes get in this thing called the someday syndrome. Someday I'll. Like it's an aisle, and someday I'll go here. Someday I'll do this. So I'm going to give you kind of a prescription so you won't have to live on someday out. It doesn't take long. I know lots of my friends who walk out the door that have something happens and they pass away. Or you go to the doctor and you do an X-ray and you see this. You see that there's a problem. So, and he says, I'm sorry, we've done everything we could do. So here's my challenge. For the next 30 days, now just 30 days, I want you to just live as if you only had 30 days left. Now, in the Bible, there are 4 universal truths based on this principle of 1 month to live, and that we can get them from Christ. I want you to think again about what would it be like if you just had 1 month. Well, the first one, write it down. The first one is you got to live passionately. I've kind of been maybe too overzealous in my life. But Howard Thurman said, don't ask what the world needs, what makes you come alive, because the world needs what the world needs. You need to ask what makes you come alive. In other words, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, because the world needs people, frankly, who are alive. You were never made to live a comfortable life. You know, you weren't made for the kiddie ride. You were made for the Big Dipper. Jesus wasn't saying, Jesus was saying you didn't experience life and you didn't enjoy every moment of it. I played this music for you, but you didn't dance, for heaven's sakes. The great thing about it is God has planted a dream, and probably in every single person. But the difference between my dream and a lot of other people's dreams is they just didn't live very passionately. Well, the second one is live completely. Now that sounds sort of strange, but did you know that Jesus lived every moment of his life while he was on earth? He invested his life in his disciples. Over the past 10 years, whether I want to say I enjoyed it or not, I've been able to be around people who came to the end of their life, or they had just a few months to live. And I began to notice they would say things like, I wish I had said this to people. I wish I had done this. I had a friend of mine who was dying of heart failure, and he said one time, I asked him, is there anything you regret? And he said, well, there's nothing I regret, really. But here are some things. I regret not doing the things that I did with a lot of effort or a lot of passion. So I would say now, before, you don't ever know, share it right now. Show it right now and say it right now to people. Some of you maybe need to go and just make a phone call to somebody. I'm surprised now how people are so upset over nothing, absolutely zero. Forgiveness unforgiveness does more damage to the person that it's stored in than to the person that's poured on. Say it now, share it now, and show it now. You saw the bucket list. There's so many great quotes in that thing, but one great quote is, I believe you measure your life by the people that measure themselves by you. When there were two of the stars were talking to each other, and one said to the other, I envy people who have faith. I just can't get my head around it. And the other person said, well, maybe your head's in the way. Well, the third one is to live humbly. And I know, oh Lord, it's hard to be humble. I know that. Pride is not a good thing. Because sometimes you won't listen because you don't want to be wrong, or sometimes I've defended myself knowing I'm wrong, but my pride stopped me from changing. Jesus was a humble person. I tell you how to be humble. That's to be grateful. Be grateful. The next one is live an intentional day. Now, let me tell you, you and I live under so many doggone distractions that it's hard to be intentional about our life. I've kind of decided I'm done with the television. Tomorrow night Tuesday night's the debates. I'm not going to listen to that mess because it gets in my head. And they'll be talking about it all week anyway. I want to live intentionally, I need God's power. I said this to him. I need your power to step out in faith and be willing to do things that are kind of awkward to me, I need your power not to be so stinking selfish. I need your wisdom to connect with children because I feel like I'm clueless right now about a lot of that. The fourth principle is to live boldly, but live boldly. When I was a kid, we do this now. I have a friend of mine who does it. Built these magnificent sand castles down here. Sometimes those things will be 3 feet high. But after a while, the tide will come in and wash it all away. But I'm afraid that some of us, and myself included, are going to be pretty doggone disappointed when our sandcastles get washed away because we built these elaborate things called sandcastles. We spent too much time on them. Somebody said, what would happen if you got to the end of your life and found out that your ladder was leaning against the wrong wall? See, some of us build sandcastles of big bank accounts, and some of us build sandcastles of success or great business or fame. And there's nothing wrong with those kinds of sandcastles. But I'm telling you, one day the tide's going to roll it all the way. I heard this great story about a husband and his wife, and the husband said, listen, when I die, I want you to bury all my money, throw all my money in the casket and bury it with me. And she said, sure, I have no problem. And so the funeral came, and she walked up to the casket, and she wrote a check and threw it in there. One day the tide's going to come rolling in, and wash everything that's temporary. I tell young couples who get married, the day is going to come when it's just you and her sitting across from the table. Cars will be gone, house will be gone, children will be gone, jobs will be gone. It'll just be the people that you love. So I'm going to challenge you now for the next 30 days. Here they are. Live passionately, live completely, live humbly. I know, Lord, it's hard to be humble. And live intentionally, live boldly. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Not because you're going to die in a month, but because, Lord willing, you're going to live many more years. Hey, have a good week. See you later, alligator.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone.